Picture the person you love the most. Picture them sitting on the couch, eating cereal, ranting about something totally charming, like how it bothers them when people sign their emails with a single initial instead of taking those 4 extra keystrokes to just finish the job. Chaos will get them. Chaos will crack them from the outside with a falling branch, a speeding car, a bullet, or unravel them from the inside with the mutiny of their very own cells. Chaos will rot your plants and kill your dog and rust your bike. It will decay your most precious memories, topple your favorite cities, wreck any sanctuary you can ever build. It's not if, it's when. Chaos is the only sure thing in this world, the master that rules us all. My scientist father taught me early, there is no escaping the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy is only growing. It can never be diminished no matter what we do. A smart human accepts this truth. A smart human does not try to fight it. But one spring day in 1906, a tall American man with a walrus mustache dared to challenge our master. There's an idea in philosophy that certain things don't exist until they get a name. Abstract things like justice, nostalgia, infinity, love, or sin. The thinking goes that these concepts do not just sit out there on some ethereal plane waiting to be discovered by humans, but instead snap into being when someone invents a name for them. The moment the name is uttered, the concept becomes real in the sense that it can affect reality. We can declare war, truce, bankruptcy, love, innocence or guilt, and in so doing change the course of people's lives. The name itself is a thing of great power then, the vessel that drags the idea from the imaginary to the earthly realm. Before the word, however, the thinking goes, the concept is largely inert. There are plenty of naysayers who roll their eyes and point to math. Do numbers not exist without our names for them? Show me a circle without a pie inside. But plenty of philosophers take it even further. Trenton Merricks, for example, a philosopher at the University of Virginia, is so dubious about the existence of concepts around us that he doesn't even think something as seemingly concrete as a chair exists. He agrees that he is sitting on particles, yes, but do those particles constitute a chair? He doesn't think so. His kids have grown up saddled with this knowledge that their dad does not believe in chairs or gloves or most human-named categories of objects on Earth. On a school field trip to an apple orchard, his daughter stepped up to him and demanded he answer in front of parents and school kids alike if he thought the hay cart in which they were riding existed. He looked around sheepishly, tried to backpedal it, but when she finally pushed him to answer, true or false, this hay cart exists, he looked down and replied, false. He knows how he sounds. If you were to meet him on an airplane, he would not tell you what he studies. Quote, I try to avoid leading with the thing that's easiest to make fun of, but I actually think the view's not crazy, end quote. His point is simply that the human mind is not always so good at carving up its world, that the names we place on things often turn out to be wrong. We're, quote, slaves, subhuman creatures unworthy of freedom. We're, quote, witches deserving of the stake. His chair example is intended in the same spirit, a reminder to stay humble, to stay wary of what we believe about even the most basic things in our lives. I think you have to think that if you want to make progress, he says. I got it. I really sort of got it. It felt important as I sat there with him in his office, which did not necessarily exist. But as I walked back out onto campus, orange leaves twirling down so beautifully before me, the ideas seemed to evaporate in the wind. Of course chairs exist, and trees, and leaves, and love. There are things in this world that are real, that do not need our words to be real. What does a fish care if some scientist walking a few feet above him happens to label him a fish? With or without his name, he is still a fish, right? Right? I'll get there. But what's for certain is that taxonomists also get a little woo-woo about the whole naming thing. The very first time a species is named, the specimen is placed in a very special jar where it receives a very special honor. It is marked in the official scientific ledger as the sole maker of the species. In taxonomic lingo, any specimen is called a type, and happily this holy type happens to be called a holotype. And like any sacred relic, these holotypes are stored in safe places, museums or academic institutions all over the world. The very first Lycidius idus longinus butterfly, for example, is stored in Harvard's Museum of Comparative Zoology. The first starfish of the now extinct Morocastor coronatus species, a mosaicked little pendant of a creature, is kept inside the Musée de Toulouse. They are often kept in private back rooms, but if you ask real nice, with proper reverence for what you seek, you can sometimes be taken to see these things and stand before them breathless, encountering in some real way Genesis in a jar. I finally got myself out to Stanford University's archives, where dozens of David Starr Jordan's boxes of journals, letters, unpublished essays, and drawings lay in wait. I requested the maximum amount of material allowed per day. Morning after morning, I resisted the sunshine beckoning out those windows, the scent of eucalyptus whispering, "Come hither." I was searching for some clear admission of guilt in those yellowing pages. On my 5th day, I came across a folder full of drawings. It was dated just a few years after Jane's death. This time, instead of flowers, it was monsters that David drew. Endless monsters rendered in that same labored hand. They are wild with color. A lobster with a goat head, a porcupine with rainbow quills, a carnivorous kangaroo dripping magenta blood from her fangs, with a carnivorous baby in her pouch. Dragon after dragon, demon after demon, goat horns galore. They breathe fire. They drip blood. Human limbs protrude from their jaws. In one, 3 squids are choking on their tails. In another, the night sky hemorrhages sharks and wolves and snakes. In another, there is a man with a walrus mustache, just like David. He is standing at the back of a crowd, looking off to his side at a woman wearing a floral hat, just like Jane. This man, this one man in a crowd of many, is the sole figure who sports a pair of devil's horns. They are sketched in faintly above his head, as though they have just filled in. Deep at the bottom of a box jangling with odds and ends, I found a small rectangular note card. It was from Jane's brother, Charles, thanking David for the condolence flowers he sent after Jane's death. I pictured David reading the card, his thumb pressing into the very same cardstock, and I felt a little shock of disgust. I came across a carefully cut out newspaper article, folded in half so its contents were hidden from view, titled, "Dr. Jordan's Statement is Riddled by Experts." In it, the reporter refutes David's explanation of death by natural causes, showing item by item how the evidence points to a poisoning. The article concludes by suggesting that David Starr Jordan must be covering up a crime and warns that the killer is still on the loose. Was the archivist right? I wondered as I flipped through these thousands of pages, remnants of David's skin entering my own nostrils. Was I doing exactly what I was beginning to suspect David of, twisting the facts to keep my worldview intact, to confirm my daddy's belief that confidence inevitably corrupts? Despite my mounting suspicion of David, I forced myself to encounter his good side, to breathe it in. I carefully read the handwritten remembrances by Jessie, calling David the miracle of her life. His many poems, odes to the hidden and significant of this world, sea sponges and sea stars, and even grass itself. I read about his tireless work protecting the fur seal from overhunting. I handled the heavy engraved medallions he won for advocating peace, his passion in later years. I read the article he wrote called "Where Uncle Sam's Solar Plexus is Located," in which he argues that America's most vulnerable spot was its hub of weapons manufacturing in the mid-Atlantic. A nation too reliant on the killing business, he wrote, was in a bad way. Its potential for growth, on the other hand, he claimed lay in public school. It teaches the lessons of personal usefulness, of friendship across race lines, of equality before the law. This is his source of power, he wrote. I sniffed his journals, the small leather ones he carried around in his breast pocket as a young abolitionist. They smelled of warmed butter. They spilled forth with drawings of caterpillars, spiders, and leaves. I went home empty-handed. I went home lost as ever.